Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Biblio Files, a show from the Ann Arbor District Library in Michigan that's all about books. Each episode, we take a few minutes to answer one book-related question. I'm here with Lucy and Amanda, and my name is Christopher. This time, we're looking at a recap of some of our favorite things in the past and things we're looking forward to. So we're answering 3 questions. What's one of your favorite books of the past year? What's a book that you're looking forward to reading? And what's a screen adaptation that you're excited about that's coming up in the future? Let's start with Amanda. Let's talk about what's one of the best books you read this year?
So over the past year of doing this show, we've read a lot of books. Plus, we've been in a unique situation where we were probably reading more than normal. We were also inspiring each other greatly to read above and beyond our normal scope of things. I am not bringing anything quite new to the table. I've read a lot of great books over the past year, and many of them we've had the chance to talk about on the show. We also do a lot of chit-chatting before and after we record the show. So the book I'm bringing to the table is an author we've mentioned several times on the show, Jason Reynolds. And I don't think we talked about this book specifically. I don't know if I did. I talked about it outside of the show a lot. The book Ghost by Jason Reynolds. It is a 2016 novel, and it is the first in a 4-part series. This one is called Ghost. I think it was written in 2016. I listened to the audiobook. I don't do a lot of audiobooks, but I loved listening to the audiobook of this. It's only 3.5 hours. The book is youth fiction. It's a great middle grade book for like grade 5 through grade 9, or anybody who wants to read a really great book. The book centers around a young man named Ghost. Ghost is 13. He's in 7th grade, and he gets in trouble at school. He's haunted by some of the things that happened in his family in the past. He's running from things. But then he actually ends up running to something because he ends up being recruited to the track team because he's a really, really, really fast runner. He just magically has these running skills. It's a really great book. He's the narrator, and the point of view is so precious and amazing. He's funny. He's quick-witted. He has these silly, these childlike observations that only a kid would see, and you really relate to what he's talking. You just really relate to his voice and how he sees the world. So the track coach ends up being like a nice little father figure for him, and I love the relationship of Ghost and the track coach. So this is the first one in the series. There's 3 more that are 3 other kids on the track team, and they each tell their own little story about like their background and how they ended up on the track team together. So another Jason Reynolds book. If you haven't read anything by him yet, please grab something and just read it, because we've been talking about him for a year and we recommend it. So this is Ghost, one of his recent youth novels. Lucy, what is one of your favorite, best, amazing books you read this past year?
I had a really hard time with this because I read more than usual, as you said, in this past year. And I read a lot of really great things, but I decided that I wanted to talk about a book that I feel was underappreciated. I don't think that it got the press that it should have. I didn't see it on a lot of like best of lists. It's a nonfiction book, and it's called Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own. And it's by Eddie Escalade Jr. And the author, he's a professor at Princeton. He takes the work and writing of James Baldwin to try and make sense of what is happening around us today. So it's part biography of James Baldwin, part literary criticism, and then part memoir, because you really understand why this author has such a personal connection with James Baldwin. And he goes through his own sort of journey of how he really dove deeply into James Baldwin. So it also gives you this tip of how to read James Baldwin. I think he suggests not doing it in a chronological fashion, like come in and out of different pieces and use different pieces in different ways, different times in your life. So he's looking to James Baldwin for inspiration, but also for guidance. And I think that it was interesting because James Baldwin can be really unsparing in his diagnoses of people. And that's sort of a viewpoint that this author used well to look at our current times and our present times around us. And he looked at some of the later writing of James Baldwin, which is not usually what's quoted or what's put on lists. And it's sort of a time when James Baldwin was more disillusioned about the situation that he was seeing. So I think, again, that was really a helpful lens. So it was beautifully written and incredibly moving because the author put this personal stuff in it. I listened to it, he reads it, and then I read it because I was like, I need to get those words again, and then I went back and listened to some other parts of it again, because I just loved hearing him tell me about his connection with James Baldwin. So if you've not read any James Baldwin, this is kind of a good place to start, because he's going to give you, it's almost like taking a little class, but the way that he applies it to our world today is also very interesting and informative. So that is Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own by Eddie S. Cloud Jr. And I really recommend it. I'm surprised that it wasn't on more like best of nonfiction lists, because it was really, I've just thought about it ever since I read it. So that is what I'm going to say was my favorite book. Christopher, what did you pick?
Well, before I get into that, I just wanted to ask if that was the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center winner of this year. Is that the book?
It might have been. I don't know.
Okay.
That would be fabulous if it was.
I just learned about that in their annual book awards, and maybe
next
time we should take a look for this show. Would be great.
That would be a great idea. Yeah.
So the book I picked is one that we featured on the show already, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. It's Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. And there are a lot of reasons I like the book so much. One, the characters and the writing and the story is fantastic. And as I've been doing so much reading this year and going back to Concrete Rose, I realized another reason I like the characters so much is because they're flawed. They screw up. And some of the other books I've read this year that I have really enjoyed have really missed that. And going back and thinking about Concrete Rose, I've really appreciated that about it. A couple other reasons I've enjoyed it so much. For me, it was a new genre. I don't often read that age group, and I really enjoyed it. Also, it was a new book when I started reading it, and I'm usually years, if not decades or centuries behind the times. And also, the real reason I think that I enjoyed it so much is because the three of us got to read it and discuss it together. And looking back on the book groups that I've been in this year, I have really enjoyed that experience so much. And so Concrete Rose is one I highly recommend for those reasons. And I really enjoyed going through this year. Let's take a look at what book we are looking forward to reading this year. It could be a book that has not been published or a book that is out, and we're really excited to get to it in the coming year. Lucy, would you start us off with that?
Sure. So a book that I am really excited to read is called Beautiful World, Where Are You? By Sally Rooney, and it is coming out in September. But we do have it available on our, to put a hold on already. And if you aren't familiar with Sally Rooney, she's a young writer who wrote these two huge hit books that are sort of about angsty Irish millennials, is how I would describe them. The first one is called Conversations with Friends, and it's about like two couples that one couple gets really interested in the other couple, and they kind of get intertwined. The second book is about one couple and their sort of long-term relationship. That one's Normal People. Normal People takes their love affair from from college all the way through like later in adulthood. And she's exploring class and sex and mental health really well. She explores these things, but she also looks closely at like the inner lives of all of her characters. She sort of writes it very much from this internal viewpoint. And her new book is about a 29-year-old Irish writer who suffers a mental breakdown because of the popularity of her work. So I'm wondering if that's related. I don't know if it's something that's experiential for Sally Rooney. But there's something about her books that just pulls you into this world, and it's kind of quiet, but also like passionate. And I couldn't tear myself away from either of her first two books. The middle book, Normal People, was made into a TV show that was so good. I mean, like my husband and I binged it like in a way that we've never done before, just episode after episode after episode. So I'm really excited for Sally Rooney's new book, and I can't wait for it to come out. So that it's called Beautiful World, Where Are You? Amanda, what are you looking forward to reading?
Well, that book sounds great. And I do want to watch the show Normal People. It's been on my list. Well, that's a great segue, a little bit of that, to the book I want to mention. So one of the books I'm looking forward to reading is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. It came out in May. It is Essays on a Human-Centered Planet. It came out in May of 2021. And you mentioned mental health and too much success after writing a book, and that's sort of, he touches upon that in the book. I haven't read the book yet. Part of it is based on, there's a podcast with the same name. John Green, he writes a lot of YA novels for teens, The Fault in Our Stars, Turtle All the Way Down, Looking for Alaska. He's won so many awards. He's a great author, and he's kind of dipped in and out. And so this is a nonfiction essays, and I'm looking very much forward to reading it. It's a diversion for him, and I'm looking forward to reading about the topic of these observations on humanity in this present day. So there we are. Christopher, what do you got for us?
Well, this book has been out for a while. I noticed that it was just featured in an AADL newsletter. My brother sent this to me a few years ago, and he has never steered me wrong. It's Killers of the Flower Moon by David Gran, excuse me. And I'm really excited to read it. I haven't read any nonfiction in a long time, which used to be the only thing that I read. And so my brother knows me very well, and I'm really excited to get into this. It is about a period in U.S. history when oil was discovered in Oklahoma, and there were a series of murders essentially to run Native Americans off their land or just kill them. And it led to the formation of the FBI. So it's great. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it because it's a kind of hidden chapter in U.S. history, which is going to be perfect for me. There were so many books, though, and I thought of all the books that I want to get through this year, this is going to be one of them because it was from my brother. So it's Killers of the Flower Moon. Let's take a look at our last topic, which is, what is a screen adaptation that you're looking forward to this year? And I'm very curious what everyone will have to say about this. Amanda?
So screen adaptations of books are one of my favorite things. And since this is the little 1-year anniversary of our show, before the show officially started in this format, that was the first thing we talked about was film adaptations of books. So I'm so glad that this question was on our little list of discussions for today. The thing I picked is as of this filming, it's new for summer. It came out in July on Netflix, and it is the Fear Street Trilogy. It is horror, and there are actually 3 separate movies, and they are based on the teen novels called Fear Street, written by R.L. Stine. He's the author of the Goosebumps series. Before he did the Goosebumps novels for kids, he wrote teen horror, and he did Fear Street. So flash forward to now, Netflix has these 3 movies. Watch them in order. So there's Fear Street 1994, which sets the scene. Then there's Fear Street 1978, and then there's Fear Street 1666. And the way they released them was really cool because they released them on 3 Friday nights in a row in July. It's perfect, and they're all rated R. They're super campy. My favorite one was the middle one, 1978. So the first one, 1994, kind of sets the scene. It's set in Shadyside. It's a town where bad things happen to the best of people. It's just everyone's down on their luck all the time. There's also been a series of brutal slayings on and off through history. It's been a cursed town and cursed people for centuries. So then some teens want to figure out why, and they start finding pieces and putting things together. And then it flashes back to 1978, where some of these things were first beginning. And then it goes back to the third installment where you go back to 1666 even further to when these things start happening. And of course you've got teens running around. It's super campy. It just has a lot of these, like, especially the 1978 one just has like these sleepaway camp slasher film tropes, which is not my favorite type of horror anyway. I really enjoyed watching the trilogy. I highly recommend it if you're into horror, just want to watch something new. I recommend it's Fear Street, and it's on Netflix based on the R.L. Stine novels. Lucy.
This was another really difficult one for me because I feel like I've been reading about so many books that are being turned into movies, and then also a lot of TV series. And like you, Amanda, that's just one of my favorite things. I love it. So I had a hard time narrowing this down, but the one that I am going to talk about that I'm excited to watch when it comes out is the TV show, The Sympathizer. So it's based on Viet Thanh Nguyen's Pulitzer Prize winning book, The Sympathizer, which was a great book. It was sort of this cross-cultural satire. It's also a spy novel because it centers on this guy who's a double agent, and he goes from Vietnam to the US. I learned a lot reading it. It was funny. He's such a good writer that there was so much in there, and I'm really interested to see how the TV show, it's going to be a series, I think on HBO, is how that's going to turn out. I just learned that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in it playing, well, so there's like certain characters throughout. There's a CIA agent, there's a Hollywood film director, there's a congressman. So there's like a bunch of these white American characters, and Robert Downey Jr. is going to play all of them. So I'm interested to see what that's about. I think they're still casting a lot of the Vietnamese characters. So the book was, it was so engaging, and I see how it would make a great show. So I'm interested to see how it's going to come together, and I'm looking forward to watching it once it does. So Christopher, how about you?
Well, let's see. We've got Dune coming up with Timothée Chalamet. We have Lord of the Rings coming up on HBO. But the book, the adaptation that I'm most excited about is on this book. So it's Station 11. And I just learned that this is going to be adapted, and I think it may even be finished filming, and it's going to air at some point, I think this year. It is not a film, but it's a short series. I have to say I'm excited about it, but I'm very skeptical. And here's why. I found Station 11 to be beautiful, contemplative, and strange and interesting, almost calming at times, even though it is about a plague that wipes out most of the population of the world. It's still really calm and beautiful, mostly, except for some points of tension. Despite that, the book is a very fast read. It's wonderful. But I am nervous that they're going to have to add too much tension, too much action, too many very dire circumstances to make it into a screen version. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm nervous about it. We've said so many times on this show, the book was better. And I am wondering if that's also going to be the case with this as well. But we'll see.
I feel like with a lot of times you hear about like, oh, they're making X book into a movie or a show. Yay. Oh no. Because you get excited because you love the source material, but you're also like, are they going to do it right? But also you get a little bit excited because you want to revisit that space and see how somebody else interprets it into another format. So yes. I totally feel all those trepidatious thoughts.
Yep.
I think the funny thing, though, is while I was reading this book, I thought it would make a really beautiful movie. I really had that in mind, but now I'm nervous, so you can't win with me.
Well, if the show's terrible, you always have the book, as with anything.
Right.
That's right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this look back and look forward. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and we would love to hear what you thought about your book of the year, favorite screen adaptation coming up, and what's our third category?
Something you're looking forward to reading.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let us know, and we'll see you next time. Take care.